Hello and welcome to Talking with Famous People. I'm going to share this brief lecture with my students so that they understand the pipeline issues with the viewing audience because I suspect a lot of people don't quite understand them. So there's a big controversy over the transcontinental pipeline that takes oil from Canada down to the Gulf of Mexico and it crosses some Indian land in North Dakota. And there was a big protest there and a bunch of leftists went and sat up there and tried to prevent them from building the pipeline, yada, yada, yada. Now, first of all, let me dismiss any notions that the pipeline is bad. The pipeline is absolutely not bad. It's absolutely good. Why? Well, it facilitates the transport of oil over land instead of via oil tankers in the ocean where they're more likely to crash, there's a spill, and it kills all the wildlife, and yada, yada, yada. There's much less likely to be a spill on land for multiple reasons, namely, the oil is moving, not the pipe, right? That's the problem with shipping oil is that it's not the oil that's moving, it's the ship. And ships are vehicles, and vehicles crash. So that's the reality. Is if you are an environmentalist, you favor the pipeline, you don't oppose it. There's this ridiculous impact that's being stated by people sometimes that if we have the pipeline, then we're going to open up access to the Canadian tar sands, and there's going to be all this extra oil produced that otherwise wouldn't have been produced. That's a lie. It would have been produced anyway. It just would have been transported less efficiently, which would have been more polluting and at a higher risk of crashing. So the pipeline is a good thing for sure. Okay. Now let's talk about fracking. The impact Catherine was trying to draw was that the pipeline allows us to not frack because we can access the tar sands in Canada. Unfortunately, the reality is we're going to continue fracking and have the tar sands. The reality is also that unlike the pipeline, fracking actually is bad. Fracking is terrible. It is environmentally destructive beyond anything that any other methodology of getting oil out. And the reason is because it destroys groundwater by pumping a bunch of fucking chemicals down there and it ruins people's tap water. If you have a groundwater supply of tap, then forget about it. You don't want fracking going on near you. It's There ought not be fracking. The pipeline will not prevent fracking, nor will not having the pipeline cause fracking to increase. People will continue to exploit uh, energy sources as long as they remain profitable, and the less supply of oil, the more profitable, high polluting methodologies of oil production are. For example, tar sands is a high polluting way to get oil. Not as bad as fracking, but anywhere close to as bad as fracking, but still a high polluting way of getting oil. Tar sands become cost effective when oil is more expensive. Making oil cheaper by lowering transportation costs makes it less likely they're going to access high cost oil extraction methodologies that have a lower profit margin. And thus, the argument is fallacious entirely that somehow not accessing Canada with a pipeline means not accessing the tar sands. It makes accessing tar sands more likely because not having the pipeline increase oil prices. And thus, do we understand that the pipeline's all good and that none of the impacts of not having the pipeline are actually impacts of not having the pipeline, and the impacts of having the pipeline are actually impacts of having the pipeline. And the thing that's actually is bad is fracking, but the link there is weak, but we'll make it anyway in the argument to say that yes, the pipeline prevents fracking. But I'll tell you right now, it's bullshit. It's a weak argument, but it's a good argument. It's good you can make because there aren't any good arguments on the side that says let's stop the pipeline. There are no good arguments for that side. It's completely all bullshit. Now, you might be able to successfully argue that you ought not infringe upon the sovereignty of the Indians on their land. I tend to agree with that, and I would say the solution is simple: go around them. But that's a different matter, and it's not of very great importance to anybody except for the Indians themselves and people who are highly principled and say we ought not impose upon Native American sovereignty. I think that's the strongest argument, but it's not the one that has any really measurable impact, so people probably aren't going to make it very much. And that's the long, short, and the truth of the pipeline, fracking, and Indian lands and all that kind of stuff. Thanks for watching Talking to Face People. I hope you learned something about environment today.